the Democratic Alliance in Gauteng says the tragedy of abandoned newborns continues in the province's hospitals. According to the DA Gauteng Shadow MEC for Health, Jack Bloom, 119 babies were deserted at hospitals in the province last year. In 2020, 145 babies were abandoned. Meanwhile, 56 were abandoned from January to August this year alone. The figures were recently disclosed by the Gauteng Health Department in a written reply to questions in the provincial legislature. As we observe World Adoption Month, let's find out why adoption is important and how the process works. What are some of the myths associated with adoption as well? We're joined now by Thabitha Dolamo, who is the founder of Baby and I, an organization which encourages adoption and educates communities about the importance of adoption. We're also joined by Khomotso Mkiba, a mother who has given up her baby for adoption. Telephonically, we're also joined by Dr. Mabe, the Director of Adoptions and International Services at the Department of Social Development. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's start with you, Khomotso. Thanks indeed for joining us this morning. What made you give up your baby for adoption?
Well, hello. My story is of any typical young lady out there. So I was in college and it was my first year in college. So the thought of adoption never came into my mind. The only thing that I experienced is that I fell pregnant with a guy whom he thought he's not ready, but I was ready. The thing is, the emotional support surrounding raising a child. So the thing with my story is that when I found out that I was all alone in that situation because we were renting as I was staying in Palabora. So the thing is, I didn't have any other choice because I couldn't abort due to me having the first child through cesarean section. So it was not possible nor advisable by most of the gynaes that were trying to help me abort. And it happened that I opted for adoption while he didn't want it to happen. He just wanted to abort, but it couldn't be possible. So hence I opted for adoption in my situation because I was all alone and financially I was not stable. Emotionally, I needed more support since I have an older child and I couldn't go back home with another child. So that was my reason and other reasons that I felt that I couldn't take care of the child.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that part of your story, Khomotso. Dr. Mabe, let me bring you in. You know, what is your responsibility as the department when it comes to issues of adoption? And, you know, is there enough information, do you think, out there about the process of adoption? And, what are some of the myths that are associated with this process?
Thank you very much. Firstly, I would like, to thank Khomotso of the decision that she has made in terms of, giving the child, for adoption. Because in most cases, earlier on when you started, the interview, you talked about children who are being, abandoned. Abandoned, being left, by their own biological mothers, wherever. So in this instance, Khomotso, made a right choice of consenting and giving, permission for her child, to be adopted. So adoption is a legal placement of a child in a permanent care of a person who is not his or her biological, parent. The main purpose is to protect and give the child a safe, healthy environment with positive support and to promote the goal of permanency planning, because when you have, adopted, when you have placed the child, with adoptive parents, this is a lifetime, kind of thing. So, we are encouraging people, to come forth. We are recruiting, prospective parents, to show interest and open their hearts, so that, they can, adopt children for permanency planning.
And, Doctor, perhaps I could bring this aspect in since you touched on it in the beginning. Why are we seeing, the number of abandoned babies on the increase? If we looked at some of the figures that were talked about in the Gauteng legislature, for example, it is quite alarming. Is it perhaps that people don't yet understand how the process of adoption works, or what is the problem?
I wouldn't say, what is, behind this, because as a department, we try so hard, to promote and talk about our services. Go out to communities, tell the communities about, what services, are available. For example, this one of adoption. So in this instance, I wouldn't say, what would be, the reasons, behind people, leaving their children, in dustbins or being abandoned or what. And I hear, the figures, but according to the register, according to the register, in the department, we don't have such figures. But however, we would encourage the reporters to come forth so that we investigate the matters and locate where these children are and try to protect and give them care as obligated by various legislatures, because as a state we are obligated to protect and give love to these children, definitely.
Khomotso, let me come back to you. That must have been one of the most incredibly difficult decisions that you have had to make. And of course, you stated some of the reasons why you placed your baby up for adoption. But to arrive at that decision, talk to us a bit about your personal story and the decision that you had to make, given the circumstances that you spoke about earlier.
Okay, can I explain something about the adoption process?
Yes, of course.
Like in South Africa, it's done. Yes, in South Africa, it's done differently. Like personally, I had my personal preferences. So I used private organizations instead of government organizations. Because with government, I felt like my child was going to get lost in the system. So private agencies were an option for me. So I chose an agency through Google. You can imagine. I Googled multiple different agencies, and I only chose one because the director's phone numbers were there. Her personal numbers were there 24/7. So I spoke with her. Then afterwards, when there are something like safe houses for birth mothers, I didn't get a chance to be there. But I'm grateful because I got a chance to be where my child would grow up. The support system were the caregivers. The caregivers are loving, they are caring, they are understanding. And when I got to Edenvale Hospital, that's where I gave birth to in. So when I got to Edenvale Hospital, my experience was something else. The experience of having to, you are like business being out there. So it was something like the file mentioned that my child was going to be adopted. And I got a different treatment. The treatment was taboo. Adoption is still a taboo. So it was kind of a taboo for me to place my second child up for adoption. And after giving birth and everything, I could only allow my child to go back to the place of safety, Impilo. Then afterwards, I struggled in the hospital, I struggled I was separated with other people. And that was the hardest thing to digest, because here I was a normal mother, but just because my file is written, I'm a birth mother. Then I'm having challenges to have to accept that part, because I was firstly isolated with other people from different wards. I had to fight my way back in. And afterwards, I went back I got discharged after 3 days, went back to the place of safety. I got a chance to bottle feed her, and I got a chance to bond with her. But the difference is that even the doctors were not treating me bad. Some nurses still needs education around adoption. So that was my problem with the taboo that I faced.
Sure, Dr. Mabe, perhaps I can bring you in there. You know, even speaking about adoption, in particular in our communities, Black communities, when you talk about the treatment that Khomotso was talking about, where she seemingly was treated differently because I guess, you know, some of those nurses believe that she didn't love her child. That is certainly the sense that I'm getting from that. She also felt, according to what she says, that she felt she couldn't use government facilities because she felt like her child was going to get lost in the system. Could you address that, please? And I mean, how can some of those aspects be changed, where in the very same environment where she's supposed to feel like she's made the right choice for herself, she does not feel comfortable among some of the healthcare professionals there?
Yeah, I must say, you know, that is an unfortunate, you know, incident, and I would like, you know, to make a point that when one is giving, you know, a child for adoption, you know, we are not, you know, as professionals, judging, you know, the person. And, you know, we treat, you know, the person, we don't discriminate, we don't isolate, you know, we treat, you know, the person with the dignity that, you know, she deserves. Judgmental, you know, attitudes, you know, are not, you know, acceptable. And in terms of her, you know, opting for the private or, you know, the child protection organization, we do have, you know, government social workers who are handling. So the choice is upon, you know, the person to say, if I am, you know, in that predicament of, you know, wanting to choose or, you know, to give the child, should I go to, you know, government, you know, DSD social workers? Should I go to social workers in private practice, or should I go to organizations? So the choice, you know, is upon the person. But indeed, as government, we also have government social workers who are equipped, you know, in dealing, you know, with adoption matters. I am the head of adoptions. We go throughout the country, you know, capacitating our people, you know, to be ready for such instances, and especially, you know, to assist, you know, people who are in distress, who are, you know, in predicaments, in, you know, those decisions, you know, taking decisions, you know, to opt out, you know, for adoption. But as I say, you know, there are three categories that, you know, the person can choose from. Yeah. So it is based, you know, on the person's, you know, choice. Thank you.
So what would you say, you know, about the process itself? You know, Dr. Mabe says your experience, you know, was an unfortunate incident. Do you think there needs to be more education about the fact that if you want to go the adoption route, it's okay?
Okay, with everything that happened afterwards, I was wondering if, do majority of people understand adoption, the process, like the different types of adoption? Because I met the adoptive parents, because I chose on the forms, I felt, I mentioned that I would love to meet the adoptive parents to know where my child is going. And afterwards, I couldn't, okay, I didn't choose the adoptive parents, like the social worker chooses the adoptive parents. But the fact that after it had happened, there's no support system for adoptive mothers out there, especially in South Africa, we don't have safe haven laws. So I had to find my own type of counseling, of healing, the healing process and everything, even though I'm still working with the organization in terms of raising awareness surrounding adoption education. I met the adoptive parents. It was an inter-country adoption. I knew on the same day that I was supposed to meet the parents that it's an inter-country adoption. So basically, she's adopted in Denmark. It's been 10 years now since she left, 9 years fully since she left, because she left when she was 11 months old. I met the adoptive parents. I made sure that it's not a taboo. My eldest child has to know about it. I went along with her. And few months down the line, around my community, it was a taboo because people thought, here I was I've placed my daughter for adoption, and I'll never see her again or anything. People don't understand the process of adoption. There's no posters in clinics, primary healthcare facilities, in hospitals that explain, or pamphlets that explain the process of placing a child for adoption for birth mothers.
And I'll come to you on that,
Yes.
Dr. Amabe, just very shortly about how we can ensure more support for mothers who've decided to place their children up for adoption. But I want to bring in Thabitha Dolamo, who is the founder of Baby and I, an organization which encourages adoption and educates communities about the importance of adoption. Sister Thabitha, thank you so much for joining us. Finally, we're able to get you on the line. What is your role as Baby and I in this particular process, in particular when it comes to encouraging adoption?
So, good morning to your listeners as well. So for me and the organization is to raise awareness around adoption and to celebrate the families that have adopted, and also to support their adoptees who are the children that have been adopted. So we started the campaign 4 years ago. It's been running now for 5 years, and for me, it's to build the necessary networks around adoption, i.e., people like Khomotso, the birth mothers that need support, and also even the adoptive parents and adoptees.
Yes, and what more in terms of support can be given? We're listening to Khomotso, who placed her second child up for adoption, and she says the process itself still needs a lot of more work. Healthcare facilities need to educate more about the process of adoption. She didn't feel like she was being supported because of the decision that she had taken. Even from healthcare professionals, she was separated from other mothers, who had given birth. And she says that there was just no support for her, to deal with the mental after effects of the decision that she made for various reasons.
So I think the major problem is the stigma around adoption, and of course 10 years ago things were completely different, and now that in the space or in the networks, we were taught that throughout the process, when we need support, we're going to get it through the orphanage home where I have adopted my little one. So, and I think, Griselda, we need to note that the campaign also wants us to also change the behavior. It wants us it encourages us to change the way we talk to each other, because really we are discouraging each other. We laugh at each other. We think that if you don't have a biological child, you are not a woman enough. So those are the things that we're also trying to change and learn as we go along in the campaign. So for me, I would say that maybe things have changed. That's why I was able to be told that, look, you're going to have support. If the child wants to see the mother, you come to us. We support you and the child and the mother through the process, because we don't want to cause more damage. Khomotso was not supported, and we're really hoping that things are going to change. The more we talk about these things, and the more we teach each other in terms of how to talk to each other as families, as couples, as communities. That way people can come out freely, to say that I need 1, 2, and 3. Even the birth mothers are able to sort of form their own networks so that they can support each other. I mean, I've built my own networks, including the families that have adopted, so that the conversations are quite similar, and then you're getting the necessary support.
Khomotso, perhaps I could come back to you again. Having placed your second child up for adoption, did you notice any, effects that it had maybe on your firstborn, or was that relationship not there at all? Or did you have to explain to your firstborn about what had happened, and if there had been any, behavior or response from your firstborn on that, in terms of the connection between these two?
Okay, I explained to her that I have a second child. By the time she was 5 years old, you can imagine trying to explain. 5-year-olds see the world as perfect. They are still on their imaginative state. So I had to explain it in a mind of a 5-year-old. I just explained I have the second child, but she's not staying with us. And when we went to visit her, I would go alone. The first time she went, that was even the last time, because she went to meet her younger sister. The thing is, with children, they accept so easily. But I think the bond and connection was not there, because it was like a meet and greet session, then it was goodbye. So she understands that she has a second, a younger sister, let me put it like this, a younger sister who's adopted in Denmark. And she understands the difference of adoption and that I'm the birth mother, which means I'm the biological mother. And she's also the biological sister. And we would talk about it, and she's so open about it. She even tells her friends about it. So I don't think she has a perspective, a different perspective surrounding adoption, as in terms of children. There's a funny way at how children can relate to things. But with my first child, she understood very well. Even when people were trying to mock her from the paternal family, she would explain it in a way, in a matured manner. So I think there's no bond, but she understands. We do get pictures. We do share how she looks and how the adopted child looks. So it's something like, Husiami is not missing. Her name is Husiami, even though they changed another. They didn't change the name. They just added another name, Rosa. But she even knows. We even have her birth certificate. We talk about her. It's not like she's a secret. We do have a photo frame in the bedroom of her. So she does has connection with her, but not that connection of siblings staying together.
Back to you again very shortly. We're just going to let Dr. Tebogo Mabe go, the Director of Adoptions and International Services at the Department of Social Development. I do understand, Doc, that you need to leave us now. Thank you very much for your participation thus far. I want to come to you, to Thabitha Dolamo, who's the founder of Baby and I. What more can be done, Thabitha, from the way that Khomotso is explaining it? She explains it in a way like, yes, the baby has been given up for adoption, but there is still that connection. She doesn't feel like, she has given her baby away. The picture is still there. She knows the name. She has the birth. She talks about that with her firstborn child. How important is that for people to understand that this process is not just a process of saying, I don't want the baby, I cannot look after the baby at this particular point for a number of reasons, including those that Khomotso has given, that the process can be something that people can explore instead of abandoning their babies?
Yes, definitely there is an opportunity for the birth mothers to explore that option. And I know that there's lots of talks around that, rather than abandoning the child, because some children might not survive that rough landing. Some children die before they're even found. So there are talks to say that come forward, call the social workers, go to your nearest clinic, hospital, or even an orphanage home, and discuss your intentions, because there's another serious problem about our statistics in South Africa. We know children are born every day, but there are a lot of children that die in the process of being abandoned. So we're also trying to fix that with some of the orphanage homes that we partnered with. And it goes back also to the families and the communities. When we rally around each other, we really need to support each other and not be judgmental and not criticize, because there's a human being now involved. And we are creating networks where all the phases of adoption is supported, i.e. the adoptee, the birth mother and adoptive parents. So, and Griselda, because we had just started this, although we are grateful that it's been 5 years running, and of course we are getting a lot of information and a lot of learnings.
Yeah.
But now this year, when we had the expo last week, we managed to even grow the network with the orphanage homes, with the social workers, with the doctors, with the government to say, let's work on this thing together. Running a World Adoption Day event for me is not just my thing, because I get my support from my family. But we're saying that it's a community thing. We're saying that let's rally around and support each other and just love each other, and take the kids off the street and understand that pregnancy happens in so many ways. Therefore, the mother needs a lot of support as well.
Absolutely. Khomotso, is there anything that you would want to say about the process? As you say, the issue of adoption is still something that is very taboo in many communities, as per your experience, including in, healthcare facilities where you would expect that, some healthcare professionals would behave differently and support the decision that you have made, because they are supposed to understand this process even better than you and I. Is there anything that you want to say, about the process itself and whether you think it's a good idea if someone wants to explore this?
Okay. I would like to say adoption is a beautiful thing, even though there's trauma included. And for those who are facing that trauma, there are organizations. The beautiful part is that there are organizations. I was talk with Baby Line, the person who's heading Baby Line, Pamela Mkunu. There is a national line. It's Baby Line, it's national, and it helps young mothers who need more information, those who are pregnant and in distress, because it also has a WhatsApp line. Another thing I would like to see more support groups for birth mothers, more support system for birth mothers. And like adoption has been done in South Africa, like for ages, even before, like we do things legally. We were raised by our great-grandmothers, aunts and stuff. So, and other people. So adoption has been done. What we can call customary adoption today, there's customary marriage. There's also customary adoption in the African belief system. Yeah. So adoption is not something that started today. It has been happening. Foster care has been happening. That's why in the earlier days, you couldn't find an orphanage home or a center for old age people, because we would take these people within our families. So adoption is a beautiful thing. Adoption has not, must not even, people should not even try to stigmatize it. So there is a Baby Line that is available out there, and there are support systems that other organizations are trying to raise a voice on them. So I'd say that in closing.
Khomotso, thank you so much. Really appreciate you speaking to us on this and the process itself. Khomotso Mkiba, a mother who's given up a baby for adoption, telling us her story there, as well as Thabitha Dolamo, who is the founder of Baby and Iron organization, which encourages adoption and educates communities about the importance of adoption. To you both, ladies, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And of course, earlier, Dr. Tebogo Mabe, who's with the Department of Social Development. He's, of course, Adoptions and International, the Director of Adoptions and International Services at the Department of Social Development. Thank you very much.